And it's when the body and the brain feel it's excitement and whatever it is, that whoop is going to trigger the energy, is going to trigger the focus, is going to trigger everything. So that's a...
You are your own greatest ally or enemy. Awaken the warrior within you. Take charge of your inner kingdom. Welcome to the Warrior Growth Academy podcast.
Welcome to the Warrior Growth Academy podcast, where we build our mental strength to not only survive, but to thrive in this life. Today, we have a very interesting guest, Ange, and we're gonna dive deeper into the brain, and not just the brain as the concept of something we need to take care of, but really how it works and how we can, I would say, stabilize it and optimize it in order to function at our best on a daily basis. Yeah. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you, man. That was a good intro.
I just made it up. It came from the heart.
The focus was there, bro. Thank you, man.
You are the inspiration. It's a huge pleasure to have you here. Obviously, we worked on a few classes with you for the platform, but it's a pleasure to now have a real conversation with you, because obviously in the middle of all the business things, we're not really getting into the depth.
Yeah.
So first, maybe just so people, and even myself, we understand better, tell us in, a nutshell, what you do on a daily basis. I know you have your clinic. I know you help a lot of people with their posture, but also you include some neuroscience in it. But also, what's the journey that brought you to this?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question, because people will understand exactly what I'm doing based on the journey that I went when I was a kid. So it started off with the fact that I was a sick kid that had a lot of issues with my brain, my gut. I used to develop in a way that my mom said, like, you were walking with only one arms and you didn't walk until 2 years old, 3 years old. You didn't talk before like 3 or 4 years old. So
wow.
It was already like something that was not weird, but there's a type of way. So I was being sick for all my childhood. I was having like issues with my gut, my health. I had an autoimmune disease also, so I couldn't like eat a lot of stuff. I couldn't sleep much. I was never focused. I had struggled with so many issues with school, but I was performing so well at other things, but like very well. Yeah. So it developed a curiosity about health, because I was always in the chiropractic mode. I was always in physio, always in, different type of modalities that used to treat my back and my pain, because I was also have like joint pain since 14 years old. So I used to go at these places, but nobody was trying, like, they didn't find like the issue. They didn't find the root cause of like what was the problem with all my health issues. Like they were like trying to crack my back, trying to like adjust it, trying to massage and everything, but it didn't help. But one day I meet someone that think outside the box, and he connect the dots between how I develop in the womb and how I developed into my 4 years old. So he asked me like, how do you crawl? Did you talk like later on? Blah, blah, all these questions that my mother was like, yo, you didn't walk as normal. So by connecting these dots, he said like the way you develop your brain and you develop movements and you develop your posture, you develop your gut, you develop everything that is connected to the brain and the way you move, the way you talk, the way you think, the way your behavior is in the sensory input and everything. So he told me that I had a huge imbalance in my left brain that was causing me all this gut health, gut disorder and everything, and the viruses, why I was always sick and why I was never focused, and my memory was just trash at this point. So he connect these stimulus with sensory input, and by like months or two, I started getting so much better. My gut was better. My focus was better, and then I like, okay, I want to do this. Like, I want to learn this. I don't want to just trust you. I want to learn what it is. So I was like 18, 19 years old at this point, and I just started studying this functional neurology in Europe, in Montreal, with different like doctors, and I really like go deep into how their brain developed between the womb until 7 years old. And I learned like everything that we think or behave at this point is because of the development that is there between this 7 years old. So now I work in a clinic with people that have ADHD, dyslexia, autisms, a lot of autisms. and I work with like trying to understand which part of the brain doesn't have the network or the capacity of like rewire brain on a fluid way, and I check the motor pattern and the sensory primitive reflexes that make them a lot better. Yeah, so that's a good intro, but yeah, that's a big intro. But like that, so that was the reason why it get me passionate, because I was sick all my life. Yeah.
I love it. That's wonderful. And that's kind of very representative of, often, not always, but often through our own life experience, if we follow the path that kind of sometimes just, is created in front, it guides us to something very powerful. Meaning now you're helping people find that balance and help with all those issues, whether it's, we're gonna dive deeper, but whether it's something physical or mental in the execution of daily, or even just in mental and physical wellness. But it started all with like you living through literally all those pains and finding a solution that was kind of hidden, right? Because it wasn't the thing that all of the practitioners gave you.
Yeah, because that's not the modalities that we learn in school. Like even like doctors of this world or whatever it is, you finish school and you're already like 20 years late. You're not in like the new way of thinking. So you have to get into new formation, new courses that really get deep into the new study of how the brain works, because even today we don't know how the brain works. What is it exactly that we sleep, or like we have consciousness, or whatever it is. So you have to study all these things. So if the people that you see doesn't think outside the box, and doesn't think outside of what the school teach him, it will always get far as 20 like late years old, like of what is actually there in a new study.
Yeah. And obviously in your classes you dive way deeper into this, but one thing that really stood out for me was the fact that, as you kind of already touched upon, the way obviously our upbringing, or even in our mother's womb, has an impact, but it's not too late. Meaning it's kind of like riding a bicycle. You could be 45 years old and you never rode a bicycle because XYZ, but with just some simple exercises, you can within a few weeks almost,
have result.
Not only have a result, but then it's set for basically the rest of your life, because it's just something new in a way, right? I guess it's new neural pathways that are created.
Exactly.
And once they're there, you don't need to like kind of like a muscle, keep on working on it in order to keep it big.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Because what people need to understand is that when it comes to ADHD, autisms, or lack of focus, whatever it is, it's not a genetic mutation. It's not a problem or a disease in the brain. It's actually just a neural network that it's not connected. So what we call is neuroplasticity. So we connect the neurons so they can communicate better. Because the more we age, the less neurons that we have, but they're connecting in a better way. So when we start this childhood, like this life, we have all these neurons, but they can't connect. So what I teach is that if we put a better sensory input between 0 and 7, people can actually connect these neurons. But if it wasn't the case, and if these neurons didn't like connect, we can actually still connect them years and years and years after that by just recreating these patterns of sensory input that we didn't do back then. And people say like, why we didn't do it? Like, is it because of the parents? Is it my fault? Is it your fault? But it's the answer is like it's nobody else's fault. It's just the epigenetics of your brain can be transmuted into 7 to 14 generation. So sometimes people can jump easily. They will be like have tingling in the foot, in the hands. That is not normal. It's just a part of the brain that is not connected. But you can actually just re-stimulate them by creating these new networks of connection. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So yeah, that's also two things that I remember well from your classes, is that one, being tingling is a sign that there's something wrong. It's not normal.
Yeah, it's common. That's
yeah.
what we call it.
Don't feel bad if you're getting tingling, but it's connected to a greater thing that you should assess.
Yeah.
And also the fact of being very responsive. So kind of like always
Survival,
on alert
yeah.
is a connection with being very anxious, stressed out, and living too much in survival mode.
survival mode,
What are like other very clear and tangible, or at least clear symptoms and signs of unbalanced brain
Yeah, the first
between
thing,
the left and the right?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first thing is you have difficulty to get what is left from right. So people say, I also like tell my clients, say like turn to the left, like on the table, and they think about it like, oh, the left, okay, oh, blah, blah. So people don't know it yet, but they struggle with the left and the right a lot. That's the first sign. The second sign I would say that is more common is a lack of balance. Balance is it's a great key that you're supposed to have balance. Like if you don't have balance, you have maybe you're more gonna have some issues with anxiety because the more how can I say that, like the most stressful thing for the human body is to manage gravity. So if you don't have any balance, your body is already stressed, your brain is already stressed without on an unconscious way. So you have to have balance. And the other thing I will say is what we call proprioception. So proprioception is knowing where our body is in space. So if you tend to walk and always walk on your friends or like walk from left to right, it's something that can be difficult when it comes to your focus, your brain function and everything. So I would say balance your left and right. And people can just do a test right now to see if they have a good connection between the left and the right. It's actually just touching the nose and the ear and trying to connect this from 10 times in a row, and I will say 90% of people that will listen to us won't be able to actually do the exercise. So it's not because you know your left and your right, your brain actually can communicate them in a functional way.
Yeah. Including me. Yeah. I've done it. Wait, it's like this, like this. You see?
Yeah,
well, I mean,
exactly.
I have the microphone, so obviously I'll take this as an excuse, but
exactly.
I remember the first time you made me do it, I got it like 1 in 3 times, and it was a struggle, 100%.
Yeah, people can just take note that if you struggle with this in the first reps, it's okay.
Because you're getting used to it.
But if you can do it after like 5, 6, and you're like, okay, no, that's fluid, it's not a problem. But if you can do it after like a minute or two of like you really still struggle to connect the both around, it's not that it's like, oh my God, I have a problem. It's more like, okay, now you know that there's something in your brain that is not connected properly, and you can fix that. Yeah.
Amazing. So, for example, now we kind of saw some signs of, what it looks like, and there's many others, right? What are the benefits of having a good balanced brain?
Yeah.
As much as it sounds obvious, but like, what are the benefits? Like, what then when you do some of those exercises and you do rewire those neurons and blah, 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 what are the benefits of really doing that work?
Yeah, so if people can picture what it is to have a brain that is connected really at a higher level, you can picture like a pyramid that they call the pyramid of William and Schellenberger, which is two ego therapists that we call in English, it's not ego, it's occupational therapists, I think. You have a foundation of what your brain is supposed to have, like what we just talked, and at the top of the pyramid is like the cognitive, intellectual, emotional behavior, your focus, gut and everything, and that's at the top. So when your brain is developed all the tool and the step to go into this 0 to 7 years old, you're going into all this. So when people say, we only have 7 or like 10% of what the brain can actually be, it's not really that we just have 10%. It's actually that we didn't really connect all these things, and at the end, when you connect all this motor pattern and repetitive reflex in a good way, you're gonna have what we call a focus, a good memory, a good gut, a good way of remembering things and picturing things. You can actually have more energy also. So when everything is more connected, just your body is just in a more optimal way. So people think that I need to eat that really, really good to have a good health. I need to blah, blah. But we have to understand why people eat super good and still doesn't have good energy, still is sick, still blah, blah. And people can eat trash and still have all these good things. So we need to ask a serious question of like, is the brain actually connected all the dots between everything, or is it actually external source that help us? And the answer is the brain actually connect everything from the heart, the pump, the lymphatic fluid, your focus, your gut, everything. And then if you eat trash all the time, it's going to affect the brain whatsoever. But if your brain doesn't have the foundation, you're not going to have a good energy, you're not going to have a good balance, you're not going to have a good focus. So I will say all the answer. But the first thing that we see is good energy when we balance the brain, good focus, a better memory, and less anxious, that's for sure. Because the brain start in the womb and the baby is anxious and the baby doesn't have balance and the baby doesn't have any memory, and then it develops into a higher functioning brain that control the lower part of the brain that shut down the survival mode. So we come into this life in a survival mode, and then the higher function came into place because of all the things that I said, control these things, and now we can function in an optimal way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is there external things that can trigger survival mode other than a disbalance, right? Because this is more a constant element. What can trigger that survival mode?
There's things that we can't control, which is like in the air, like all the toxic things that we smells all day. But the things that we can control that affect it, it's for sure it will be our diet, like the way we eat. So if we eat like trash all the time, if we eat like at McDonald's, if we eat breads, casein, like dairy product all the time, which science proved that right now it's not the same as it was 30 years ago, it can affect your brain. The other thing is that concussion you can say, can affect those things that can trigger the primitive reflex and all these things in the brain that used to be there when you were young, it can triggering back. So the reflex and all these things that put us on the survival mode are never gone. They're just controlled by our higher brain function. So if I had like a brain concussion or I have a brain injury, then it can come back. And that's why like people in functional neurology and doctor work on these things and work on primitive reflex to get rid of this when people have a brain injury. And they see amazing result with that also. So I would say like the diet, brain injury can also affect it, the thing that we smell, the plastics in the air, the heavy metals, like the water that we drink, it's full of fluoride and full of toxic and heavy metals. So that's why it's important to really check what we eat and make sure that we don't do a sports that triggering like concussion and everything, like brain injury, like from boxing and footballs and everything. So I'm not saying don't do this stuff, but just be aware that it can affect the things that I said. Yeah.
Why do you think, despite probably very known, impact of American football, of boxing, why do you think people still do it?
Because it's people like how do you say that in English? It's entertain. Like so, people just love the entertainment. People just love this stuff. But they have rules right now that are less like intense than it was like 20. Like football, you cannot do like head to head now. There's things that you can't do anymore. But people, what brings money to the table will always.
But I mean from like a personal decision of like, I want to become a boxer. Probably some way I will hear that this might.
That's a good question.
You probably seen, Muhammad Ali interviews when he was, older, and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to be like this when I'm 45, for example.
Sure. The first answer to that is that our primal brain always works in the survival mode since thousands of years. So when we talk about like boxing and like sports and everything, it's just in our ADN, it's just in our brain, it's just in our networks. So people want to fight because there's something in us that triggering these type of things. So that's just normal. But then there's risk. They know the risk, and there's something that they can like work with professional that also help them now, especially like in a generation. But I would say it's a really survival thing. It's a really like thing that is come from our ancestors because genes can be not transport, but like give for like I said, like 15 generation. So you can have some people that was fighting in the wars, like exactly, that you still have in your body that is activated, and genes can be activated depending on your epigenetics also.
Interesting. Since we're talking about the brain, there's I think a separate concept of the brain being conscious and subconscious.
Yeah.
How does that work?
The subconscious mind is work at 95% of the time during the day, and the conscious mind is 5%. So the conscious mind is like me talking to you. I have to think, it's my mental brain, you know? And the unconscious mind is everything that my brain and my eyes and my ear perceive on a different aspect. Like I just saw a video that I didn't really remember, but my conscious say like, oh, it triggering something from your past. So let me put that in a scenario in your dreams. Like, you know, that's why we say like, oh, I saw something today and I saw that in the dream after that, because the dream is 100% time unconscious. So there's pattern that we do that affect our unconscious pattern, and we're not even aware of that. So the more you, and what I teach is like the more you control all these reflex and the balance of your brain, the more you can be aware, like self-aware first of all, and less survival, that you will connect more easily with your unconscious mind. So when it comes to meditation, when it comes to yoga, when it comes to psychological pattern that you need to fix in yourself or observe, I will not say fix, I will say observe, you can actually get deep into these things, because now your brain is functioning better in the frontal lobe, which connect to your emotional state, which connect to your unconscious mind. But people have to understand that the unconscious mind control, like not 100%, but almost 100%. So you have to be really careful at what you watch, what you eat, what you actually smells, what you actually like, the people that you actually be in your everyday like life, because they affect your brain after that.
So don't hang out with smelly people. That's what you're saying?
I say smells, but like, definitely. Yeah.
So what would be like easy, even if I don't believe in easy fixes, but at least a good start to wire for the good, for the better, our subconscious brain, since that's the part of the brain that takes a lot of our decisions. So probably, especially if, we've never changed anything, there might be some programs that we don't want, we're not even conscious of. So what are, for example, little practices to, you mentioned, what music you listen to, what you watch, what type of people you spend with. So obviously, but what else could people do?
The first thing that people need to understand when it comes to like the subconscious and everything, people need to understand that you need to get rid of the survival mode, because survival mode, it's okay when there are an action or something that is bad or triggering your nervous system. But you're not supposed to be in a survival mode all the time, because when you're in survival mode, you can't heal and you can't connect with your unconscious mind. So the first thing that you need to understand is, if you like jump easily, if you are sensitive to sound, sensitive to like big places, and you don't really get outside of your routine, and you really have to, like, not an OCD type of thing, but really like everything have to be this, because if you're going outside of that, then anxiety come after you. It's really harder to connect with your unconscious like mind if you're always in that state. And this state is something that the brain have, like it's a reflex that your brain needs to have in the development, but after 1 year it's supposed to be shut down and controlled by your brain. So all these symptoms, it's normal between 0 and 1 years old, but it's not normal after that. You're not supposed to jump easily, you're not supposed to be sensitive to sound, all these things. Or if people like touch you and you didn't know that, and you're like, oh my God, or is there a sound like the radio that is starting and you didn't know it. So that's not normal. It's not a good reflex. It's a bad reflex controlled by that is not controlled by your brain. So if you have all that, there's exercise that you can do that I actually teach in the class, that will allow you to connect more with your subconscious, and don't have this anxiety all the time. It's like wolf that is running after you all the time, and because your subconscious mind think that is wolf running after you because you're in survival mode, it would just let you connect to your unconscious. It will always be in the conscious mind of, man, be aware of that, be aware of this. So all the meditation work will not get along long term, because when you get out of your meditation, boom, you're still in the survival mode, because your reflex is still not connected with your higher brain function. So I will say meditation help, but short term. But in long term, you need to get rid of these reflex. You need to activate this part of the brain that will get you out of this and connect more to the subconscious mind.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it's true, I liked a lot, and it's hard to say if it's because I felt the impact or it's because it was different or for whatever reason. So I don't want to, with conviction pinpoint it. But when I went to your girlfriend's Mahela and your event, it was really amazing that in the beginning you explained how the brain functioned in a very simple way. We made some exercises, and only then we made the meditation and the sound healing, and at the end the cacao ceremony. And I think even if it's not the benefits per se, but just even the priming and the preparation, it was really truly powerful, because I've been to that kind of event, for years and years. And I've never, I think, connected as much. And actually, it's funny because I'll probably say it again in the conversation with Mahela, but I don't know if you remember when we talked after, before the event, I told myself my intention was to figure out a better way to kind of merge the fact that I was launching the business, so I still needed to, be in go mode and not like just chill out and, relax. But at the same time, at the same time, I couldn't just keep on grinding without, a counterbalance. So I knew that was the thing that I wanted to kind of either have an answer for, or at least figure out, or at least even from that event, gain, and then, feel more energized and recharged for the following weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
And the how do you say? I was about to say hallucination. The visualization. The what I saw in the middle of the session while the sound healing was going on was I was on a top of a pyramid in Egypt, and I was seeing I wasn't just in myself. It's as if there was also a drone circling myself,
like
and
360,
I was seeing almost like all of the desert and all the other pyramids. And then within almost with a sound, within a split second, I saw like my neurons or my cells in my body kind of like just moving or communicating. And I understood, again, this is my interpretation, and I think this is the goal of those situations, is how do you interpret that, right? That's why we love poetry, is because poetry is not always literal. There's always a message that can be understood different ways. Is that the goal is not to separate those two as this is where I'm working, this is where I'm resting, but to merge the two, right? And I know it's not the same for everyone, but that's the thing. It's for me in this process, it became way less draining when I started to even have more fun and also be more present while still doing all the work and doing all the things, instead of seeing it as a separate thing. So I need to work during the week, and then at least a few hours on the weekend, or ideally a full day, I need to watch Netflix. But those two together became so powerful. So that was insane.
That's an amazing experience. And a lot of people will experience these things, but some people will also say, I struggled to really get into this low frequency in my brain to be really in a deep, relaxed zone. And that's what I teach to people. It's like, when your brain doesn't function at the proper state, like we do the test that we did, with you, the brain, blah, blah. And the people that struggle with these tests, all the tests that I do, and they struggle with that, are the people that really have no experience whatsoever when it comes to visual and relaxation and be in a state of theta. Because the brain function in a beta mode, right now our brain is really in a beta mode. It's a frequency of I have to be present, I have to talk, and then it's relax, and then it's connection to your subconscious. But you can connect, that's what you asked the question, you can connect with the subconscious when your higher brain is triggering by your lower part of your brain, which is the subconscious, and this is the conscious. And when they can connect together, because their brain just don't function properly because of the survival mode, you will never witness and experience what you experience in this state. And I know your brain is functional pretty well, because I talk to you and you do the test. Yes, you had a couple tests that are really, really optimal, but like in general, your test was strong, you know?
Yes.
And that's the kind of people that will experience deep things into meditation and all these stuff. But also, not only in deep meditation, but just in life, that are able to, you know, I can relax, and I know this situation I can control, but if my brain is always in survival, it's like, oh my God, like this and that and that, and like the brain is like all over the place. And that's why I need to balance people's brain. And people need to also learn from themselves and like educate themselves of what I teach, so they can really get deep into like, oh yeah, what he teach and what he said is actually, I can actually search it into a couple study and say like, yeah, this is real. Because the more and more we advance, the more we have this study of Harvard that is actually proof what we do in brain balance. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Man, I could talk about these things for hours and hours.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we didn't touch upon today that you think should be mentioned?
I will only say like people can really understand their brain by understanding how it works. So really quickly, we have two parts of the brain. We have the left brain and the right brain. We always say like it's math and it's creative, artist way, but it's really more complex than that. I will say like your right brain, if you want to understand it, guys, it's really about social, sports. It's really about introspective, like understand your own emotion and understand other people's emotions, so you're empathic, you know. But you can also get deep into what you feel, because the right brain is sensory. The right brain is really kinesthetic, so it connects with all this sensory input. And the left brain is more like, it's more like small details. It will dissociate like every patterns to really observe them in a deep way. So when you understand these two, you cannot be one like stronger than the other. It's like, it's not only you will be good in math or you will be super creative. It's like, it's either you are too empathic if you are too right brain, and it's like, man, you're creating now scenarios and you have fear of judgment and blah blah. And the other way, if you go like too deep into details, you miss the bigger picture of what is supposed to be in life. So small details, bigger picture, and there's a lot of like different things, but I talk about it in the course, so you can actually see if your brain, you're more left brain, you're more right brain in, and which brain doesn't work really well, and what is the specific exercise you can do to actually help the brain. But yeah, there's a lot of things to say about that, but that will be just the little like conclusion of this. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have a question for me?
Yeah, for sure, because you ask question, but like I know you are doing these type of exercise that actually are more into like not good patterns, but like good habits of focus and blah blah. So I talk about the brain, but you actually talk about tips. So I'm curious to know, like, because we didn't really talk about it, what type of tips that you learned from all your experience that actually can be good for creating new habits, creating like these type of things that it can merge with what I said about the focus and the brain and everything.
Absolutely. So yeah, so I won't go into habits in general. I'll just go into the habit, or at least getting into the mode of focus. So this is coming mainly from Stephen Kotler and Ryan Doris, who founded an institute literally dedicated to focus. And Stephen Kotler is the author of Superhuman and a bunch of books only on this. He's a scientist. It's incredible. So I kind of really, what I do basically when I research or I learn something, I just try to remember the little details that I know why I'm doing something. So I never do something just because someone says it's good for you. Like if day one you tell me do yoga or meditation, it's good for you, I'll never do it. But as soon as I understand at least just a little bit what happens in the body and also maybe a little bit of the story, then it gives me enough reasons, right? So for focus, really focus is something magical, because even if we go to the extreme, quote unquote, what is flow, right? And this is something I've been practicing for many years, and it's truly incredible. And actually, flow is not just used for performance or productivity. Flow is literally associated with well-being, lower levels of stress, and also just general happiness in your life. So even someone who doesn't need technically to get into flow state in order to be like extremely focused on their work still wants to experience flow state in order to get out of the survival mode, in order to just feel better, right? And basically there's 4 stages of flow. I don't know if I remember them well, but all I know is that it starts with struggle, but then you break through that, if especially you know that the beginning is hard and it's part of the process, but then you get into this zone of time doesn't matter anymore and you're hyper focused and you do perform at a higher level, meaning your brain is really functioning quicker, quote unquote, than usually. You're not distracted. What you need to do, if I put really in simple terms, is, and obviously there's more research and more things to learn about this, but what you need to do is set a specific time frame. Let's say 45 minutes minimum, not less, because that's a little bit that you need some time in the beginning to get into that state, and you want to flow in that state for a little bit too. So 45 minutes minimum. Then you determine a specific task you want to work on. Not, I'm going to answer my emails. You don't really need any flow state for this. Sure, you could do it, but there's not really use and there's no magic that will happen. So let's say something, you really need to work on, focus, one specific thing, something ideally that is enough challenging that you are kind of like slightly stressed by it. So it's not something super easy that you've done 1,000 times, but not something too hard that then it puts you too much in a stress state. So there is that perfect balance between the challenge and the kind of boredom, right? Because if you need to answer emails, that's boredom. You don't really need higher focus level. And basically also what helps, again, I'm kind of putting a lot of little elements together. What helps is to have an environment that is a bit new. So if you're always at the same kitchen table doing all your regular work and also your cooking, you lower the chances of really getting truly into flow state. But you can just go on the other side of the table, the same. It doesn't mean you need to go to a coffee shop you've never been before, but just changing what your brain sees stimulates the brain. Obviously cutting off all notifications, all distractions. So like, closing your door, your phone is in another room, and basically just letting the magic happen. Because if you put, it's literally ingredients, right? Because each ingredient has a specific impact on your brain, and the environment creates basically what you experience after.
And that's really nice, because what you just said was actually proven by science, that with Dr. Joe Dispenza and his team with different universities, I say people lack energy, focus, good habits, because they always live in what we call so-called the past, because it's always the same routine, it's always the same things. So if we're still doing all day, every day, the same thing all over again in the same routine, we always live in the past. So we don't create this new pattern. So we're not able to learn a new thing or be enjoyed by life, And it's when the body and the brain feel it's excitement and whatever it is, that is going to trigger the energy, is going to trigger the focus, is going to trigger everything. So that's an amazing point. So this is what you actually teach, or?
No, not at all. Not
Okay,
at all. I think I might have, I didn't record it yet, so we'll see, but I might have one class on kind of time management, goal setting, focus, so I'll include it in it. But I'm clearly not an expert on the matter. I'm just a geek of those things. So for sure, yes, I can communicate it, but I don't know if I'm, the person to literally teach it. But if it's part of a bigger picture, goal setting, that is not a science, it's more practices and, human psychology and a mix of everything. So, then in that kind of context, I'm comfortable to kind of transfer the information and be a messenger.
But sometimes, that's a good point, because people, we're not always have to have a doctorate of psychology to actually understand, because people can study, and when it comes to life, they just suck at it. They can't apply it. So when people actually experience those type of things, it's oh, it works for me. This is what I did. You can try it out. I think you have the voice for that. Do you think because you just talk about it, but do you think it actually have to take 30 days to create this new pattern in your brain for new habits? Did you actually try new, you just said, new habits for 30 days to see, okay, now my brain actually do this on a daily basis, and when I did just 10 days of what you actually did, it didn't really work out?
Honestly, I won't even talk for myself, even though I've been testing and working out habits for years. So that's also another thing that I'm a geek about. But there is science and and studies made literally on this, because this is the classical question, how many days does a habit take? And it's literally, if I remember well, between 18 and 266 days. And the reason it's so dispersed is because it depends on how hard the habit is, right? So then in the middle, there is, I believe, there is an average of most habits that was observed in all the group studies, that is 66 days. So basically, in order to have almost an automatic habit, you don't even need to force yourself. It takes 2 months. But what I'll add on this is that how hard it feels that it is, meaning like, you're kind of pushing through that wall of resistance, it's uncomfortable, that's just in the beginning. That's literally almost just the few first days, because even though it's not a habit after 6 days, after 12 days, or not yet the habit like literally that you do automatically, it's still not hard as it was in the beginning. So that's why, like, literally the advice number one for almost everything is start.
Yeah.
Because the resistance, how you feel, and you actually, it's more of a mental blockage rather than the blockage itself. But the only kind of push through and more discipline you need, it's just the first few days, and especially before, to get you started. And then it becomes very easy. Of course, having, tracking systems and having accountability buddies, having a good environment, of course it helps. But even if you don't have anything else, you're just like, I want to start working out or going for a daily walk. Obviously, it's just, getting it started, and then it magically becomes easy, especially if you see the benefits, right? Because sometimes we might try a habit and it's not really something we enjoy.
That's for sure.
And
it works the same, probably, I guess, with addiction. Like it's always
absolutely
hard, like in the beginning.
Exactly.
I used to be in all these meeting of how do you call it, like AA, I think it is, not because of me. Like I don't have any addiction with that, but all my family have. I struggle a lot, so I've been there with the couples just to see and like what they have to teach, and it's always the same. It's always like like the first 30 days is the most difficult, and then the habits become a new thing. And so it works with habits, but it also works probably with addiction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mike, it's been a huge pleasure. I'm probably sure we're gonna have more of those conversations. You watching or listening, honestly, the 3 classes of Mike on the Warrior Growth Academy are insane. Super simple to apply, very clear and concise, even though we obviously get into the science and the neurology of the thing, but make sure to check them out. There's one that helps you with anxiety and stress. There's one for high performance. There's one that just rebalances your brain hemispheres. So make sure to check it out. Make sure to subscribe to not miss any other episodes of the podcast. I'll see you at the next one.